everyone, and welcome to another first in the series, Cozy Mystery Review. And today I'm going to review To Kill a Mockingjay by Harper Kincaid. So this book takes place with Quinn, who is the main character. She's just come back home to Vienna, Virginia from teaching 3 years abroad in Asia. I know one of those stations was Cambodia. I don't think that they mentioned the others. So she's come back home. She's now working in the family bookshop that is a little cafe and bookshop, and she does bookbinding and book restoration. So this particular book, she's come back home, and one of the mean girls from her past in the town has become engaged to a very brief ex-boyfriend, and later Quinn finds her murdered, finds this girl murdered. And so this book, that's just the very short synopsis there to get started. So in this book, the things that I liked about this particular book, I like her occupation. It's really interesting. I don't think we've had many other main characters that I've read who've, gone away and had that particular abroad teaching experience and then come home back to a small town. I think that could have made her character very complex. Kincaid does not write her that way. So I'll be interested to see in future books if that comes if that complexity comes in or that world experience comes in. And I think her job is very interesting. So that bookbinding, book restoration, being in the family business, again, could be very interesting, but Kincaid does not bring that job of bookbinding into the story. There's only 2 very brief places where it comes into the story, which is really surprising to me. But that really doesn't come into it, though it is very interesting. She does have a German Shepherd dog whose name is fabulous. It's RBG, and it's Ruff Barker Ginsburg, which just had me giggle every single time I read it. It's awesome. I love it. Also, her kind of sidekick is her cousin, who is a novitiate nun in the area, like local to the area. That particular convent also runs a dog rescue, and I just think that is really clever. That particular character as well, Quinn's cousin character, is extremely involved and vivacious, and their relationship is really interesting. So I really like that character. I almost wish that was the main character rather than Quinn, because the way that they write Quinn, she's supposed to be this 25-year-old woman. She's been to college, she's gone out in the world, she's done these 3 years of, multiple places teaching internationally. But the treatment in the book is very much as though she's in her teens, like late high school, very early college. Like the way that she speaks with, in my opinion, way too many cultural, like pop culture references that have nothing to do with the plot, really kind of make her seem younger. Some of the dialogue is very simplistic, again, making her seem younger. And then the treatment of her by others is also kind of leaning towards that very young, not necessarily that she's this 25-year-old woman who's really been out in the world and has had some experience and some, and now has a bit of wisdom. So I think that could have been better handled in the book. Again, I don't think it makes her seem like the person that they set her up to be. So that kind of plays through the book in some of the dynamics. For example, the person who's murdered is kind of this local mean girl. There's another one who's her twin, and it's very kind of high school drama between them versus like adult issues, so to speak. It's like I really felt myself not being able to relate to this situation. Now, I will say that the other thing that I liked is the method of murder is very interesting, and I didn't get, me personally, I didn't get right off, number one, who the murderer was. It took me about halfway through the book to really figure it out. And then the method of murder has a nice little twist to it as well. So I really did like those two things. It's a very clever kind of method of murder. So those are the things that I liked. When I listened on audio, there's a couple things that I didn't like about the audio version. The audio version, the narration is extremely uneven. So in the places where they've edited together, you know, over mistakes and over breaks and things like that, the audio is extremely different. Like you can really tell that there's a quality difference between those two. So it's a little jarring, a little bit hard to follow because of that. And then the narrator, her voice also makes Quinn seem much younger than she is, just by the tone of voice and the way of speaking. Makes her seem, again, like a teen and not like a, you know, a woman in her mid-20s. So those are kind of the things that I didn't like. One of the issues that I have with the book as a whole is kind of the treatment of women. And again, this kind of goes towards treating Quinn as being much younger than she is. But there's some pretty overt places where I saw sexism. So there are several places in the book where Quinn, as the main character, is scolded by a male character for going somewhere. Like, why were you in this place? Why were you in this place by yourself? And most of them are very innocuous kind of things, right? So it's like, so one of them is one of the male characters scolds her and says, you know, what were you doing out by yourself at night? And I think that that really rubbed me the wrong way. As an adult woman, nobody gets to tell me where I do and do not go. And it's not my fault for the danger of the area, right? So I really had some trouble with a couple of those places. And I'm sure that they were intended as a setup of people caring about her and things like that, but that's not how it came off to me. So overall for this particular book, I had a lot of problems with it. At the end, the wrap up was extremely quick. It felt more like an epilogue than it did as part of the book. And kind of the romantic interest was really not developed in there. And again, you know, for some series, they do that later on in the series, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I had a lot of problems with this book. As I've mentioned, just the unevenness, the dialogue, the treatment of the main character as a woman. So I myself will probably not be reading the second book. Now, here's who I think this book is for. I think it is for a much younger crowd. I am not mid-20s anymore, but I think maybe a much younger audience would enjoy it more than I did. Again, there's a lot of pop culture references from the last 10 years. We're recording this in 2020. So for like the last 10 years, if you were really into pop culture at that time, you might really enjoy that. So that's really who I think this might be for. I will be really interested to see in the next book if there is a little more refinement to the character and a little more refinement to those relationships. And if you have read this book, down in the comments, if you would, let me know if you kind of noticed that same inconsistency between how she was set up as a character and how she was displayed, because it may just be my filter and how I see things. So I'd love to hear if you disagree. Also, make sure you click subscribe if you want to get more reviews of the first in the series, Cozy Mysteries. Thanks, we'll see you next time.